Death remains one of humanity's greatest mysteries, yet medical science has identified remarkably consistent patterns that often precede life's end. These aren't mystical omens or folklore, they're biological realities documented by healthcare professionals worldwide. Understanding these signs isn't about creating fear or anxiety. Rather, it's about empowering you with knowledge that could transform how you approach precious final moments, whether for yourself or someone you love. Today, we're exploring 5 medically recognized indicators that often appear days, weeks, or even months before death. These are the subtle signals that doctors observe but rarely discuss with families until circumstances force difficult conversations. This knowledge serves a profound purpose. It allows us to recognize when the focus should shift from fighting to comforting, from denial to acceptance, from medical intervention to meaningful connection. Important note: if you're pressed for time, please increase the playback speed rather than skipping sections. Each sign builds upon the previous ones, creating a comprehensive picture that could prove invaluable when you need it most. Let's begin this essential journey of understanding what our bodies communicate when time grows precious. Most people imagine death as a sudden event, here one moment, gone the next. But you know, medical reality tells a different story. Our bodies begin preparing for their final transition far earlier than we realize, sending signals through changes most of us simply don't recognize. These communications aren't dramatic or obvious. They're subtle, progressive, and deeply purposeful. Understanding them transforms our ability to provide comfort, make important decisions, and create meaningful final experiences. The first major indicator involves something we do every day, but rarely analyze critically: sleep. You know, we all experience occasional sleep difficulties. Maybe it's stress, excitement, or illness that temporarily disrupts our rest. But when death approaches, sleep changes become dramatic and persistent in ways that medical professionals immediately recognize. Some individuals suddenly require, 14 to 16 hours of sleep daily, almost as if their internal battery constantly drains without ever really recharging. No amount of rest seems sufficient. This happens because the body begins conserving energy exclusively for essential functions. Heartbeat, breathing, basic brain activity, everything else, it just gets deprioritized. Paradoxically, others experience the complete opposite: profound exhaustion coupled with an inability to sleep. Despite being physically drained, their bodies fight against rest. Medical professionals call this terminal restlessness, the brain's desperate attempt to maximize consciousness while it remains possible. Perhaps most striking is the complete reversal of natural sleep-wake cycles. Lifelong morning people become night owls. Those who've slept soundly for decades suddenly find themselves wide awake at 3 in the morning, dozing during dinner conversations. This isn't temporary jet lag or seasonal adjustment. The circadian rhythm, that precise internal clock governing our biological functions since birth, begins deteriorating. These sleep disruptions typically emerge 1 to 3 months before death. They represent your body's early warning system, signaling that major physiological systems are fundamentally changing their operations. Normal sleep variations, you see, usually respond to lifestyle changes, and they tend to resolve within days or maybe weeks. They don't persist if you try out a few solutions. But on the other hand, sleep changes related to death can persist for weeks without any real improvement. They resist the usual remedies, and often they coincide with other subtle changes that, we'll be talking about soon. Quite often, it's the family members who notice these patterns first, before the individual themselves even realizes that something fundamental has shifted. Now, the second sign is something that can, at first, bring a bit of celebration from families who just don't yet understand its true significance: sudden, effortless weight loss. I remember visiting my Aunt Margaret during her final months. She'd always been the family's cooking enthusiast, insisting everyone have second helpings, baking elaborate desserts for any occasion. Then something changed. Food, once her greatest passion, became meaningless. Plates returned to the kitchen barely touched. "I'm just not hungry anymore," she'd say, her clothes hanging loosely where they once fit perfectly. We celebrated initially, "Look how much weight she's lost." But what we were witnessing was cachexia, a wasting syndrome that's one of the most reliable predictors of approaching death. This isn't ordinary weight loss from dieting or exercise. It's a fundamental shift in how your body processes energy. When the body recognizes its time is limited, it dramatically changes priorities. Your digestive system, which normally consumes approximately 10% of your daily energy just processing food, gets deprioritized. Your metabolism changes at the cellular level. The body essentially communicates, "We lack resources for digestion. Let's redirect energy to the brain and heart." Weight loss occurs without trying, no diet, no exercise program. Loss happens everywhere. Face, arms, fingers, not just typical areas. Complete appetite changes accompany the weight loss. Taste alterations occur. Water tastes metallic, sweets become bitter. Brief eating periods might return, confusing families into thinking recovery is happening. This sign typically appears 2 to 4 months before death and progresses consistently. Unlike voluntary weight loss, it arrives with profound weakness, fatigue, and complete disinterest in food. Understanding this sign prevents families from forcing nutrition when the body has already made different decisions about energy allocation. The third sign often proves most challenging for loved ones to witness: a psychological transformation that appears like depression or dementia, but serves an entirely different purpose. When the body begins final preparations, the mind undergoes remarkable changes. Previously critical concerns, work deadlines, household repairs, long-standing family conflicts, suddenly seem trivial and distant. This mental shift isn't depression, it's not dementia, it's your consciousness naturally protecting you from the stress of unfinished business while preparing for transition. Brain regions processing fear and anxiety often become less active. Areas handling social connections and daily stresses begin quieting. You might notice someone becoming unexpectedly philosophical or spiritual, even if they never showed such interests previously. Perhaps most remarkable is what medical professionals call terminal lucidity, brief periods of exceptional mental clarity occurring near the end. Someone confused for weeks might suddenly recognize everyone, engage in perfect conversations, and seem completely like their former self. Families often interpret this as recovery beginning. Sadly, this clarity frequently represents one of the body's final gifts before departure. People in this stage might, speak about deceased relatives as if they're present in the room. They may have conversations with people who, aren't physically there. There's often an intense focus on past memories, while showing little interest in current events. And sometimes you'll notice an unusual calmness about situations that would previously have caused quite a bit of stress. Sign 4 is circulation and physical changes. The fourth sign brings visible transformations that signal the body's systematic preparation for its final journey. Your circulation system faces a critical choice when energy becomes scarce: maintain blood flow everywhere or prioritize essential organs. The body chooses wisely, preserving brain, heart and lung function while gradually reducing circulation to the extremities. Skin develops marble-like patches with purple, blue or reddish discolorations. Medical professionals call this mottling. It typically begins on the feet and hands, progressing up the arms and legs as circulation continues redirecting toward core organs. Hands and feet feel genuinely cold, not winter chill cold, but the deep cold of significantly reduced blood flow. Meanwhile, core body temperature remains relatively stable as the heart focuses on vital organ perfusion. Cheney-Stokes breathing emerges, a distinctive pattern where breathing deepens, then becomes shallow, with complete pauses lasting several seconds before resuming. This irregular rhythm occurs as the brain's respiratory center loses precise control over breathing muscles. Nail beds turn bluish or pale as blood flow decreases. Skin appears waxy or translucent around nail beds. These changes are dramatic enough for non-medical observers to notice. Beneath these visible changes lies profound intelligence. Blood vessels in extremities constrict, reducing the heart's workload. Oxygen conservation focuses on organs absolutely essential for continued life. The body demonstrates remarkable wisdom in resource allocation during scarcity. Unlike earlier signs that might persist for months, these circulation changes typically appear in the final weeks or days before death. They represent the body's final preparations, accelerating the overall process. Sign 5 is the body's final communications. The fifth sign encompasses perhaps the most intimate and personal indicators, subtle communications many people never witness or don't understand when they do. Sensory messages. The sense of smell often provides early clues. A distinct chemical odor sometimes develops as liver and kidney processing changes. This isn't poor hygiene, it's altered body chemistry as waste processing systems prepare to shut down. Gurgling or rattling breath sounds, what medical professionals sometimes term death rattle, occur when individuals can no longer clear fluids from throat and airways. Though it sounds distressing to listeners, it's typically not painful for the person experiencing it. Hands might pluck at air or bed sheets. Reaching for invisible objects becomes common. These aren't random movements, but result from brain chemistry changes as oxygen levels fluctuate. Organ systems fail in predictable sequence. First, the digestive system typically shuts down. The kidneys follow. The heart and lungs continue functioning until the end. The brain, interestingly, remains active much longer than previously understood. Remarkably, hearing often remains intact, even when other senses diminish. This explains why healthcare workers consistently remind families to speak to unresponsive loved ones. They likely hear everything, even without ability to respond. Timing and awareness. Some people seem to wait for specific loved ones to arrive before passing. Others hold on until after important holidays or dates. This isn't coincidence. The mind-body connection remains powerful until the very end, allowing some degree of conscious choice about timing. Understanding these final communications really transforms the experience for everyone involved. Rather than creating fear, recognition allows us to provide better comfort, helps us decide when it's time to call distant family members, and clarifies when our focus should shift entirely to comfort rather than medical intervention. Now that you understand these 5 critical signs, sleep disruptions, appetite loss, mental withdrawal, circulation changes, and final communications, you possess knowledge most people never receive until they're directly facing death. This information empowers rather than frightens, because recognition enables meaningful conversations while communication remains possible. Open discussion of end-of-life wishes and preferences. Connection with hospice services, providing specialized comfort care, mental and emotional preparation for what lies ahead, and, the creation of peaceful, meaningful final experiences. Don't panic. Instead, take purposeful action. Have those important conversations you've postponed. Discuss care preferences openly and honestly. Contact healthcare providers about comfort-focused options. Gather loved ones for those precious final connections, and focus on presence rather than problem-solving. Those who recognize and accept these natural processes often experience a profound sense of completion that those fighting against biological reality never find. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means aligning with natural processes while maximizing comfort, dignity, and connection. Remember, every human who has ever lived has faced this passage. You're not alone in this experience. By understanding these signs, you're giving yourself or loved ones an invaluable gift, the possibility of a more peaceful, prepared transition. This knowledge shouldn't inspire fear of death, but rather a deeper appreciation for life. When we understand how precious and finite our time truly is, every conversation becomes more meaningful, every moment more valuable, and every connection more treasured. Don't be the person who ignores these natural communications and misses opportunities for beautiful goodbyes. Don't waste precious final moments in denial when acceptance could create profound peace and connection. Instead, use this understanding to approach both living and dying with greater wisdom, compassion, and grace. Perhaps the greatest gift of this knowledge is how it changes not just how we die, but how we live. When we truly understand life's preciousness and finite nature, we stop taking ordinary moments for granted and start creating extraordinary meaning from simple human connection. Death, viewed through this lens, becomes not an enemy to fight, but a teacher, helping us understand what matters most while we still have time to act on that wisdom.